I should go.
Hey guys, it's been a while, hasn't it? Well, it's Hiddenpurple, and I've returned once more to deliver even more in-depth game discussion. In my absence, I've been hard at work preparing to do my Mass Effect series. This has been something that I had in the pipeline since well before my channel launched. Mass Effect has had such a large impact on my life and on the games industry as a whole that I always felt it would be something I had to talk about at some point. So I put the time in and I played through the whole trilogy again, which I might add has been an absolute pleasure. I've captured all the footage and now I'm ready to start putting out videos. So starting now, I'll be releasing weekly videos again, and for the foreseeable future, my content will revolve around the Mass Effect series. I've got a video plan to discuss each game in depth, and I also have a handful of other videos revolving around the series. And yes, I will be discussing Andromeda at some point too, though I haven't had time to sit down and capture the footage yet, so that one might be a ways off. With all that out of the way, let's dive in and talk about Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect started development back in 2004 and wound up being BioWare's biggest project to date. Mass Effect was developed at least partly in response to their previous title, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. After completing the game, the developers over at BioWare thought they might like to tell more stories in a science fiction setting, so they set out to build their own universe that they could use to tell their own stories without the limitations of writing within an established universe. They did so to spectacular effect. The level of detail in Mass Effect was virtually unheard of at the time. Mass Effect has more than 400,000 words and over 20,000 lines of dialogue. It took countless man-hours to get the game out on time, but they managed to pull it off, releasing the game in November of 2007. When asked about the development, creative director Casey Hudson said that he wanted to evolve the pseudo-turn-based combat of Knights of the Old Republic into a real-time, third-person shooter interface. The combat was meant to offer the tactics and customization of a role-playing game, but through a simpler and more intuitive interface. Mass Effect was one of the first games to try and marry the RPG and shooter genre. This merging of the fast-paced shooter action and meticulous planning required to be successful in an RPG was met with mixed reception. While many experienced RPG gamers found it easy to adapt, the shooter crowd had a bit of a hard time. Shooters in the past only required that you have the skill to aim and shoot, while Mass Effect asked that you learn how to balance your skill points in such a way that your character could progress and develop their skills with particular weapon archetypes and powers over time. This slow progression was kind of a turnoff for the mainstream shooter crowd, but the story more than made up for the relatively steep learning curve. The story that Mass Effect tells unfolds both as a self-contained, character-driven narrative and a galaxy-spanning epic.
Shepard?
Rex?
These two threads were woven together by BioWare to create a story that keeps you grounded while you're off taking on impossible missions and protecting all life from the greatest threat it will ever face. In between missions, you can stop and talk to your crewmates and learn their individual stories. You learn about their struggles and motivations, the loved ones they may have left behind to join you on this impossible mission. It's this that makes the Mass Effect universe feel like a living, breathing entity. The attachment you develop to your squad mates also does a lot to help drive the plot forward. As you spend time talking to each of your crewmates, you're slowly drip-fed lore revolving around each of the characters. Garrus will teach you about Citadel security and the important role it plays in galactic society. You can also glean information on Turian family structure, government, and society. You likewise learn about the history of the Quarians from Tali, the Asari from Liara, and the Krogans from Rex.
There's no story.
These conversations work together with the rest of the story to slowly flesh out the world and help you get your bearing in the Mass Effect universe. By the end of the game, you have a pretty solid understanding of galactic history and the way the government operates without ever having to open up the Codex. If you want a true and deep understanding of the Mass Effect universe and the deeper history that led to the current events you're living out now, you can open up the Codex and really dive into Mass Effect. The Mass Effect Codex is massive in scope and details everything in the universe down to the biological differences between the species of the galaxy. This allows for a complete immersion into the Mass Effect universe and gives avid fans even more to uncover and learn. You can learn about how Mass Effect drives function, or about Element Zero and how it's used to fuel faster than light travel, as well as biotics and almost every other piece of technology in the galaxy. Mass Effect features a vast arsenal of abilities and weapons for you to choose from. This starts with the class system and then expands as you level up your character and develop your playstyle. The first class you can choose is the Soldier, an easy choice for any new players as it has training in all the weapon types as well as combat armor, making it the only class in the game able to equip heavy armor. The focus on shooting makes it an obvious choice for greenies as it doesn't require you to try and understand the complex tech and biotic abilities, and you can make it through the game on normal with relative ease before trying to immerse yourself in the world of biotics or tech abilities. The Adept is a much more advanced class and is much more difficult to play. It requires a thorough understanding of RPG systems so that you can build your class in such a way that you can out-DPS your enemies. If you don't, you'll be taken out by enemies before you can fire off your first shot. The Adept has access to basic armor, pistols, warp, throw, lift, singularity, barrier, and stasis. This wide range of abilities can be used to great effect by an experienced player and makes for a fun and challenging experience. The Engineer makes use of the wide array of tech abilities, which include decryption, hacking, electronics, and damping. Like the Adept, the Engineer is limited only to pistols and basic armor, making you have to rely on the character's wide array of abilities to survive in combat. The other three classes are the Sentinel, the Infiltrator, and the Vanguard, all of which combine the abilities of the three classes above, allowing for even more variety in gameplay and difficulty. This variety in how you can build your character from the beginning of the game allows you to load into each playthrough of Mass Effect with a fresh experience as you go through and try to get that perfect ending. It's worth noting that while the Soldier is the easiest class to get started on, the Sentinel is by far the most powerful class for experienced players. If you have a thorough understanding of how the game plays, definitely give the Sentinel a chance. The actual gunplay isn't the best out there. The over-reliance on the leveling system is one of the game's largest criticisms. For example, if you haven't leveled up the sniper rifle tree and try to scope with a sniper, you'll be subjected to an almost criminal amount of sway, making it extremely difficult to use snipers early game. Of course, a skilled player can account for this sway, but that doesn't make it any less annoying when you're trying to learn the game. As you make your way through Mass Effect, you'll face a wide variety of enemies: Salarians, Turians, humans, Asari, Geth, and more. To me, the most challenging and also the most interesting enemies are the Krogans. If you're fighting one, you may notice that sometimes they'll go down and soon after get right back up and start attacking again. The reason for this is because of the Krogans' redundant nervous system. Basically, Krogans have two nervous systems. If they die and the nervous system shuts down, the extra nervous system will kick in, allowing them to keep going while their body repairs the damage. This is an example of how gameplay should inform story. The lore of the universe is implemented in the gameplay to make for a challenging and interesting enemy. It is a huge shame that Mass Effect 2, 3, and Andromeda all removed this particular Krogan behavior. It informed the gameplay and added challenge to the game in a unique way that hasn't been reproduced since. Mass Effect's art direction and story are heavily inspired by a number of science fiction stories that came before it. Films like Star Wars, Alien, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Blade Runner, Starship Troopers, and even surprisingly enough, Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within are all influences for the art direction of the first Mass Effect game. The story was written by Drew Karpyshyn, while the music was composed as a group effort by Jack Wall, Sam Hulick, Richard Jacques, and David Cates. The creative director whose vision determined what the final product would look like was Casey Hudson. This group of people worked together to make a visually stunning world. This world is held together by an absolutely stellar soundtrack and a wonderfully written story. Some of the planets you visit in Mass Effect 1 offer views that are beyond our wildest imaginings. You might even recognize some as drawing inspiration from the classic double sunset shot from Star Wars: A New Hope. Before I move on, I want to talk about the Mako for a bit. The Mako gets a bad rap, honestly. Everyone hates on the Mako, like, all the time. Well, I'm here to say, if you don't like the Mako, you're wrong. That's a fact, not an opinion. The Mako is great, and if you don't like it, you're clearly delusional and you should seek professional help. In all of gaming history, there has been nothing quite like Mass Effect in terms of scope, art, music, and story. The writers and designers at BioWare managed to make an experience that told a grand galaxy-spanning story while keeping you grounded in reality, never losing sight of just what is at stake.
Our influence stopped the Rachni, but before that, we held the line. Our influence stopped the Krogan, but before that, we held the line. Our influence will stop Saren. In the battle today, we will hold the line.
Mass Effect shows the importance of characters in a story, no matter how wide the scope. When I first played through Mass Effect 1, I was instantly enthralled. It offered me a level of escapism that no other game had ever accomplished. I was swept away by the story, the world, the characters, the lore, and the gameplay. Everything came together to create the perfect game for me. No other genre gets my imagination going like science fiction. There's just something about it that gets my mind running wild and lets me easily forget the troubles of everyday life. Even now, as an adult, I can still sit down and play Mass Effect and forget about the pressures of adulthood. So, to give a rating to Mass Effect a proper rating would be nearly impossible, and honestly, it would be pointless because I would absolutely recommend Mass Effect to any gamer. If you've never taken the time to dive into this series, you're missing out on something truly special, and I would tell you to go out and pick it up at your earliest opportunity. It's only $30 for the whole trilogy on Origin if you're a PC gamer, and if you pick it up on Xbox or PS3, it's somewhere in the area of $10 for the trilogy. Despite the flaws, the story and art more than redeem the game. What about you? What's your favorite genre? For that matter, what's your favorite game? What stories make your imagination run wild? What do you find yourself going back to year after year? Mass Effect is my obvious choice, but go down to the comments and tell me about your favorite title of all time. I really appreciate you all waiting on me to put these videos out. I know it's been almost a month since I released a new video, but I really wanted to get this video ready for N7 Day, and that required that I played through the whole trilogy again. So again, thank you for waiting so patiently. I seriously appreciate you all waiting on me while I got this video ready. I know it's been nearly a month since my last video, but I really wanted to put this all together for N7 Day. So again, thank you so much for waiting on me. In the coming weeks, I'll be returning to my regular Friday release schedule. Be sure to tune in next week when I talk about Mass Effect 2. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any of my future content. I hope you enjoyed this video. I put a lot of love into it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. I should go.